Welcome to the Oracle's Rest, a place where stories unfold slowly, where time softens, and where the mind is free to wander. Tonight, we follow a small, russet creature out across a field of snow, beneath a sky going slowly dark to the edge of a quiet wood, where it curls into a soft circle and drapes its great brush of a tail across its nose like a blanket, and goes to sleep. Tonight we drift through the gentle, soothing world of the fox, the little wild dog that lives like a cat, the trickster of 1,000 old stories, the creature that hunts by the pull of the earth itself and sleeps wrapped in its own warm tail. Tonight we move slowly through everything that makes the fox one of the most quietly remarkable animals in the world. Picture the fox first as it stands at the edge of the trees. It is smaller than you might think. Much of what looks like fox is really fur. Beneath that thick red coat is a slight, light, delicate animal, a red fox weighing often no more than a small house cat, its legs slender, its paws neat, its body built for quickness and quiet rather than for strength. It has a narrow, pointed face and large, upright ears that turn and tilt at every sound, and a long, bushy tail nearly as long as its body, tipped in white as though dipped in snow. Its coat glows warm against the cold, rust and amber and gold, with black on its legs like dark stockings, and a soft pale belly. It is, by almost any measure, a beautiful animal, and it is watching you with calm, clever, golden eyes. Look closely, if you ever have the chance, at a fox's face. There is a delicacy to it, a fineness, the narrow muzzle, the dark, fine whiskers, the soft white of the throat, the alert tilt of the ears. And there is, in the set of the mouth and the brightness of the eyes, something that often looks to us like a smile, a sly and knowing and gentle expression, as though the fox were quietly enjoying some private thought. It is we, perhaps, who put the smile there, reading our own feelings into a wild animal's face. But it is hard not to. The fox looks back at us with such apparent calm, such quick and curious intelligence, that we cannot help but feel we are in the presence of someone, a small, bright person of the woods and the fields, going cleverly about a life entirely its own. The fox belongs to the family of dogs, It is a cousin, distant but true, of the wolf and the jackal and the dog asleep by your fire. And yet, anyone who has watched a fox knows that it does not behave much like a dog at all. It behaves in 100 small ways, like a cat. And this is one of the first gentle wonders of the fox, that it is a creature caught softly between two worlds. Look at its eyes, and you will see it. A dog's pupils are round, but a fox's pupils, in bright light, narrow to slender vertical slits, just like a cat's. These slitted eyes are the mark of an animal that hunts at the edges of the day, in the dim hours of dawn and dusk and night, when the light is low and soft. The slit can open very wide in darkness to gather every scrap of light, and close to a thin line in brightness to protect the eye. And behind the eye lies a mirror, a layer that bounces light back through for a second chance to see it, which is why a fox's eyes, caught in a beam of light at night, shine back at you with a soft green gold glow. Many people have met a fox only this way, as two small floating lights in the dark of a garden or a lane, glowing for a moment and then gone. The rest of the animal invisible in the night around them. It is the eyes that give the fox away, those two soft sparks of reflected light hanging in the blackness. The fox sees the night the way a cat does, in silver and shadow, and the fox lives in a world of senses far richer than our own. Its sense of smell is many times keener than a person's, and through its long pointed nose it reads the night like a book. The trail of a mouse, the passing of another fox hours before, the scent of food buried under the leaves. Its ears are not only large, but mobile, turning this way and that, each one able to swivel on its own toward a sound, so that the fox can fix the exact place a faint rustle comes from without moving its body at all. And it is especially sensitive to low sounds, the soft scrabbling and gnawing and rustling of small animals, the very sounds its prey cannot help but make. Even its sense of touch is fine and delicate. To move through the night as a fox is, to move through a world thick with information, alive with scent and sound, a world our own dull senses can barely begin to imagine. And the fox keeps to the soft edges of the day. It is a creature of dusk and of dawn and of the deep of the night. most awake when the light is low and gentle, when the long shadows stretch and the world cools and falls quiet. There is good sense in this. The low light hides the fox from larger eyes, and the same dim hours draw out the small animals it hunts, the mice and the voles that venture from their burrows only under cover of the dark. And so the fox has shaped its whole life around the twilight, sleeping away the bright, bare middle of the day, and coming alive as the sun goes down, slipping out to hunt in the blue gloaming, at home in the hours when most of the larger world has already gone to sleep. The fox and the night belong together, and it hunts the way a cat does, too. A wolf runs its prey down in a long chase across the open, but a fox stalks. It moves low and slow and silent through the grass, freezing, watching, placing each paw with care. And then, at the last moment, it pounces, springing into the air and coming down upon its prey, with its front paws pinning it to the ground. It even has whiskers, like a cat, stiff, sensitive hairs on its face, and, remarkably, on the backs of its legs, that help it feel its way and judge its prey in the dark. It is light on its feet, and it can climb. One kind of fox, the grey fox, can climb trees as nimbly as a cat, hooking its claws into the bark and scrambling up into the branches to rest or to escape. The only member of the whole dog family in the world that truly climbs trees. It helps in understanding the fox to know that although it belongs to the dog family, it sits on a branch of that family, all its own, set apart from the wolves and the domestic dogs by a long, long stretch of time. The foxes split away from the rest of their kin far back in the deep past, and went their own quiet way, growing smaller, lighter, more solitary, more cat-like, while their cousins grew into the great pack-hunting wolves, the true foxes, the close kin of the red fox, number only about a dozen kinds, all of them sharing that same slight build, that same pointed face, those same slender vertical pupils. So when a fox strikes you as something halfway between a dog and a cat, you are seeing something real and ancient. It is a dog by birth, but one that long ago chose the cat's path through the world, the path of the lone, soft-footed, night-hunting wanderer, and whether it hunts in summer grass or winter snow, the fox hunts with a patience that is itself a kind of stillness. It can stand for long moments without moving at all. One paw lifted, ears pricked and turning, its whole body gathered and quiet, simply listening, simply waiting, reading the dark for the faint, small sound that means a meal. There is no hurry in it, and no anxiety. The fox has the deep patience of all good hunters, the ability to be perfectly still and perfectly attentive for as long as it takes to watch a fox listening in a field, motionless, its breath slow, its eyes half closed, its ears alive to the night, is to watch a quiet master of waiting, an animal entirely present in its moment, gathered and calm and ready. So we have in the fox a small, soft dog that wears the habits of a cat. And nowhere is this gentle strangeness more lovely than in the fox's most famous trick, the high pounce in the snow. In winter, a fox hunting across a snowy field is listening, more than looking. Its prey, the mice and voles, are hidden beneath the snow, moving through tunnels in the white, invisible, but the fox can hear them. Its hearing is extraordinary. It is especially tuned to the low rustling sounds that small animals make, and it can hear a mouse moving beneath a foot of snow from many paces away. The fox stands very still, its ears swiveling, fixing the exact spot where the tiny sound is coming from. And then it does something that looks, frankly, like joy. It rises up on its hind legs and launches itself high into the air, arcing up and over, and plunges down, nose first, straight through the surface of the snow, to land precisely on the hidden mouse below. The leap is so high and so graceful that it looks less like hunting and more like dancing. A small red animal diving into the white. And here is the part that feels almost magical and that scientists are still gently puzzling over. When researchers watched many of these snow dives, they noticed something strange. The foxes seemed to prefer to pounce in one particular direction. Again and again, they would line themselves up to leap toward the north, toward the direction of the Earth's magnetic field. And when they pounced toward the north, they succeeded far more often than when they leapt some other way. The leading idea is astonishing. It may be that the fox can sense the magnetic field of the earth itself, and that it uses that sense somehow to judge the distance to its hidden prey, lining up the angle of its leap against the invisible lines of the planet's magnetism. If this is true, the fox would be doing something almost no other animal is known to do, using the Earth's magnetism not just to find its way, but to aim. A small creature in a snowy field, leaping by the pull of the whole turning planet. It is the kind of fact that makes the ordinary world feel suddenly deep and strange. This hidden sense, if it is truly there, would place the fox among a small and wondrous company of animals that seem to feel the magnetism of the earth itself. Certain birds find their way across whole continents by it, navigating by a force we cannot feel. Sea turtles cross entire oceans and return to the very beach where they hatched, guided by the faint magnetic signature of the world. We sense nothing of it at all, this quiet force running silently through everything around us. And it is strange and humbling to think that a fox in a winter field might carry somewhere behind those golden eyes an awareness we do not even possess, a feel for the planet's own invisible lines, woven right into the way it leaps and hunts. The world the fox lives in is, in this one small way, larger than our own. And then there is the tail. If you remember one soft and lovely thing about the fox tonight, let it be the tail. The fox's tail is called the brush, and it is a wonderful thing. It is long and thick and luxuriantly furred, nearly the length of the fox's whole body, and it does far more than simply hang there. When the fox runs and turns at speed, the tail streams out behind it and acts as a counterweight and a rudder, helping the fox balance and change direction in an instant, much as a cat uses its tail. When foxes meet, the tail is a flag, a signal, its position and movement carrying meaning to other foxes. And when the fox lies down to sleep in the cold, the tail becomes a blanket. The fox curls itself into a tight round ball, tucks its nose and its paws in close, and wraps that great warm brush around itself, draping it over its face like a scarf, breathing through its own soft fur. The tail warms the air the fox breathes and shields its nose and its feet from the frost. A fox asleep in the falling snow, wrapped in its own tail is one of the most peaceful images in all of nature. It carries its own blanket with it everywhere it goes, and the fox is well made for the cold in more ways than its tail alone. Its winter coat is wonderfully deep, a dense, soft underfur beneath the longer guard hairs, trapping a layer of still, warm air against the skin, so that a fox can lie out through a freezing night with the snow settling on its back and the warmth held safely within. When it curls into its tight, round ball, it tucks away everything that loses heat, drawing in its slender legs, folding its paws beneath it, hiding its nose in its tail, making itself as small and round as it possibly can. For a circle holds its warmth far better than a sprawl, and in the very worst of the weather, it simply waits, conserving its strength, sleeping through the cold and the wind, letting the storm pass over it, a small banked ember of life beneath the falling snow, patient as the winter itself. This is a creature you begin to see, beautifully made for taking care of itself. The fox is, above all, self-sufficient. It is mostly a solitary animal, hunting alone, sleeping alone, crossing its territory alone through the quiet hours. It does not run in great packs like its wolf cousins. It carries its blanket, finds its own food, keeps its own counsel, and moves softly through the world on its own 4 neat feet. And watch the way it moves, for even that is its own. A fox does not lope heavily along like a dog. It trots lightly and precisely, with a delicate, dainty step, its slender legs carrying its small body so smoothly that it seems almost to float across the ground. So neat is its tread that a trotting fox sets each back, paw almost exactly in the print left by the paw in front, so that its tracks across snow or soft earth run in a single near straight line, like the stitching of a needle, quite unlike the messy scatter a dog leaves behind. And it is so light, this animal that looks so much larger than it truly is, that it can walk across snow, which would swallow a heavier creature, treading softly over the white crust on its furred and dainty feet. There is a lightness to the fox in everything it does, a quickness and a quietness, as though it barely touches the world. It moves through, and it moves in near silence. For all that, the fox is a busy and active animal, crossing miles of country in a single night. It does so almost without a sound. Its feet fall softly. Its slender body slips through gaps in the hedge without rustling a single leaf. It can pass along a garden path a few feet from a window and never be heard at all. This quietness is part of its gift for survival. The silence of an animal that must hunt without warning its prey and travel without drawing the notice of anything larger and hungrier than itself, but it lends the fox, too, a kind of ghostliness, a soft unreality, so that those who do glimpse one often speak of how suddenly it appeared and how silently it vanished, there and then gone, like a thought, like a shadow, like something half dreamed at the edge of the dark, and it can find its food almost anywhere, because the fox will eat almost anything. Unlike many hunters, which depend on one kind of prey, the fox is wonderfully open-minded about its meals. It eats mice and voles and rabbits. Yes, but it also eats beetles and earthworms and grasshoppers. It eats birds and eggs when it can catch them, and it eats fruit and berries and whatever the season offers, ranging happily from hunter to forager and back again. In late summer, a fox may spend its evenings eating blackberries from the hedges, its muzzle stained purple, as gentle as a creature can be. This willingness to eat almost anything is one of the great secrets of the fox's success. It is why the fox can live almost everywhere. And this openness serves the fox especially well across the turning of the year, for the fox must take whatever each season gives. The warm months are kind, full of insects and young rabbits and the slow ripening of fruit. A time of plenty when food comes easily, and the foxes grow sleek and well fed. But the winter is hard. The insects are gone. The fruit is gone. The small animals are hidden away deep beneath the snow, and the fox must work for every single meal, hunting longer through the cold, listening for the mice beneath the white, digging up the food it had the foresight to bury in the gentler days of autumn. A fox that has hidden its surplus well and remembers where may pass the lean months in some comfort. The whole year for the fox is a slow rhythm of plenty and want, of fattening in the warmth and enduring in the cold, met always with the same quiet resourcefulness, the same patient willingness to take whatever the season sets before it. And it does live almost everywhere. The red fox is, in fact, the most widespread wild meat-eating animal on the entire planet. It is found across nearly the whole of the northern half of the world, through the forests of Europe and the woods of Asia, across North America, from Canada down through the United States, along the edges of deserts and high into cold mountains, in the far north near the tundra, and in the warm south near the sand. Few wild animals of any kind have spread so far across the earth. Wherever there is food to find and a quiet place to den, the fox seems able to make a life. And though we picture the fox as red, the red fox is not always red. The very same animal, the very same kind, comes in a quiet range of colours. Some are the deep familiar rust we know best, but some are golden or sandy or a soft pale brown, and some are born a smoky silver grey or charcoal or very nearly black, still with the same white tip on the tail, simply a different shade of the same fox. There are foxes marked with a darker cross over the shoulders, and foxes of a deep, glossy black, frosted with silver, all of them red foxes underneath, wearing different coats, and whatever its colour, the fox changes with the seasons. As autumn deepens and the cold comes on, the fox grows a thick winter coat, dense and deep and soft, far heavier than its sleek summer fur, so that it can face the snow wrapped in its own warmth. Then, when spring returns, it sheds that heavy coat in ragged clumps, growing lean and trim again for the warm months. The plush, round, deep-furred fox you might see trotting through the January snow is wearing a far thicker coat than the lean, long-legged fox of midsummer, though it is the very same animal underneath, simply dressed for the season. And when a fox has surplus food, more than it can eat at once, it does a thoughtful thing. It saves it for later. The fox will dig a small hole, place the extra food inside, cover it over with earth and leaves, and pat it down with its nose, hiding it away. This is called caching, and the remarkable part is that the fox remembers. It keeps in its mind a map of its many little hidden stores scattered across its territory, and returns to them later when food is scarce, digging up the meal it set aside days before. A small animal planning ahead, keeping its quiet, scattered pantry hidden under the soil of the woods. A meal here beneath a hedge, a meal there at the foot of a tree, saved against the hungry days to come. Perhaps the most surprising place the fox has learned to live in recent times is the city. In many parts of the world, foxes have moved quietly into towns and cities and made themselves at home among us. They slip through gardens in the moonlight. They trot down empty streets after midnight. They raise their young beneath garden sheds and in the overgrown corners of parks. They have learned the rhythms of human life. When the streets go quiet, where the food can be found, how to cross a road, how to live unseen in the very middle of our busy world. A city fox, glimpsed at night, trotting calmly along a pavement beneath the streetlights, has a particular magic to it. A piece of the wild woods walking gently through the heart of the human world, perfectly at ease. Wherever a fox lives, it lays its claim upon the land in a language of scent. A fox keeps a territory, a patch of country it knows intimately. Every hedge and ditch and hollow of it, and it marks the edges and the pathways of that territory with its own scent, leaving small signs at posts and tufts, and stones for other foxes to read. A passing fox can tell from these marks who has come this way and how long ago, and whether they are friend or stranger, near or far. It is a whole silent conversation written across the landscape in smell, a network of quiet messages we walk right past without ever knowing. It is there. The fox itself carries a strong, musky, distinctive scent, faintly sweet and wild, that lingers where it has passed. To another fox, that smell is a signature, a name, and through these scents, foxes that rarely ever meet face to face still keep track of one another across the dark, sharing the same land by taking turns upon it, weaving their solitary lives gently around each other through the long nights. And for all that, it lives in dens of bare earth and trots through mud and snow. The fox is a careful and tidy animal, forever grooming itself, much as a cat does. It licks and nibbles its fur clean, works the tangles from its tail, washes its face with its paws, keeping that beautiful coat in good order. For in the cold months, its very life may depend on the warmth that clean, well-kept fur can hold. A fox at rest in a patch of sun, slowly grooming its long tail, drawing it through its teeth, strand by strand, is the very picture of unhurried contentment, an animal entirely at ease in its own soft skin. Now, let us go quietly to the den in the spring, where the next foxes come into the world. For all its solitary ways, the fox is a tender and devoted parent, and the story of a fox family is a gentle one. A fox's home is called an earth, or a den, a burrow dug into a bank or a hillside, often with several entrances and tunnels and a soft chamber deep inside. Sometimes the fox digs it. Sometimes it borrows or enlarges the old burrow of another animal. And in the early spring, deep in that quiet dark, the mother fox, the vixen, gives birth to her kits. They are tiny and helpless, born with their eyes shut, unable to see, unable to keep themselves warm, covered in soft dark fuzz that looks nothing like the red coat. They will grow. For the first weeks of their lives, they do almost nothing but sleep and feed, tucked deep in the warm den, while the vixen stays close and keeps them warm with her body. And during those early days, when the vixen cannot leave her newborns, the father fox, the dog fox, brings her food. He hunts and carries his catch back to the den and leaves it for the mother and the growing kits. In some fox families, there are even helpers, young foxes from an earlier litter, often grown daughters, who stay with their parents and help to feed and watch over the new young ones, instead of going off to start lives of their own. The fox's solitary nature softens in the spring into something warm and familial, a small household working together to raise the next litter in the dark of the earth. The den itself is a careful refuge, and the vixen guards its safety closely. Often, a fox will keep more than one den within its territory, a main nursery, and a few other bolt holes here and there, so that if danger comes near the newborns, the mother has somewhere else to take them. And take them she will, if the den is disturbed or grows too soiled, or simply no longer feels safe. The vixen carries her kits one by one to a new home, lifting each gently by the loose skin at the back of its neck, the kit going soft and limp and trusting in her mouth, and trotting it across to the fresh den before slipping back for the next, deep underground in the dark and the warmth, with the smell of earth all around and the muffled sounds of the great world far above. The kits sleep and grow, safe in the quiet, hidden heart of the fox's home. In those first weeks, the world of the kits is very small. It is warm and dark and close, and it smells of earth and of their mother. They cannot see, and they cannot hear well yet, and they know the world only by warmth and scent and touch, huddling against the vixen and against one another, nursing and sleeping and slowly growing. The vixen is endlessly patient with them. She cleans them and curls around them and lies still while they feed. And when she must leave them, even for a little while, she tucks them deep into the warmest corner of the den. For a creature that spends so much of its life alone, the mother fox gives herself utterly, in these weeks, to the tiny blind lives in her care. And it is upon that quiet devotion, repeated in countless hidden dens, each and every spring, that the whole future of the foxes quietly depends. As the kits grow, their eyes open, a cloudy blue at first. Their soft, dark fuzz begins to turn, slowly, toward red, and in time, on a soft evening, they come tumbling out of the den for the first time into the wide, bright world, and they begin to play. And fox kits at play are one of the sweetest sights the wild has to offer. They pounce on one another, and on leaves, and on their parents' tails. They wrestle and roll and chase. They practice the great mousing leap on tufts of grass and bumbling insects, springing into the air and landing clumsily, learning through play the skills they will need all their lives. The whole long summer is their schooling, a season of games beside the den, until at last, as autumn comes, they are grown enough to slip away one by one and find territories of their own. That slipping away is itself a quiet adventure and a perilous one. As autumn comes on and the young foxes reach their full growth, the family that worked so hard to raise them gently dissolves, one by one. The young foxes leave the den where they were born and set off alone into the wide world to find a place of their own. Some travel only a little way, settling in the next valley over, but some wander far, crossing strange country, night after night, through lands they have never seen, slipping past the territories of older foxes, searching for an empty corner of the world to call their own. It is a hard and dangerous passage, this first lonely journey, and not all who set out upon it will find their place, but those that do will settle and learn their new ground, hedge by hedge and hollow by hollow, until it is as familiar to them as the den of their birth and the long, slow cycle of the fox's year can begin once more, and foxes do not entirely leave their playfulness behind. When they grow up, even grown foxes have been seen to play, batting and chasing and tossing things about, for no reason anyone can find except the simple pleasure of the doing. They are drawn to curious objects and have been watched nosing and pawing at balls and other small finds, pouncing on them, carrying them off, playing with them much as a kitten plays with a toy. This same curiosity, this quick and busy mind, is part of what makes the fox so good at the difficult art of staying alive. It investigates, it learns, it remembers where it has buried its food and which gardens are safe. And when the dangerous hours come and go, behind those golden eyes there is a lively, watchful, problem-solving intelligence, forever turning the world over, looking for the gap, the chance, the quiet way through. It is the cleverness the old stories always gave the fox, and the stories, for once, were right, and foxes, for all their quietness, have a great deal to say. They are surprisingly talkative animals, with a wide range of sounds, far more than you might expect from a creature so often silent and unseen. They yip and they bark, and they make a strange, chattering, stuttering sound when they squabble, which has a name all its own: geckering. They have soft contact calls for greeting one another, gentle and warm, and on cold winter nights. The fox makes the sound it is most famous for, the one that has frightened and fascinated people for centuries. It is a long, harsh, eerie scream, carrying through the darkness, sounding almost human, almost like a cry of distress. The vixen's scream, it is often called. It rings out across the winter fields when foxes are seeking one another, a wild and lonely sound in the cold night. To those who do not know it, it can be startling, even unnerving, but it is only the fox calling out across the dark to others of its kind. a voice in the winter night. And foxes speak in silence too, with their bodies, in ways that another fox reads at a single glance. The tail, that great expressive brush, is carried high or low or curved to signal mood and intent. The ears flatten back in fear or stand sharp and forward with interest. A fox at play will drop into a low crouch, front legs flat to the ground, hindquarters lifted high, in the very same bouncing invitation a dog gives when it wants to romp, the old shared language of play that runs through the whole dog family. Two foxes meeting may circle and posture and read each other's shapes in the gloom, a whole quiet conversation carried on without a single sound, in the tilt of an ear and the slow sweep of a tail. So far, we have followed mostly the red fox, the most familiar of all. But the fox is not one animal, it is many. There are dozens of kinds of fox scattered across the world, each shaped by the place it lives, and two of them in particular are so wonderful and so opposite that they deserve a quiet visit. One lives in the coldest places on earth. The other lives in the hottest. And between them, they show just how far this small, clever animal has been able to go. Far to the north, where the land gives way to ice and the winter lasts most of the year, lives the Arctic fox. It is small, smaller than the red fox, and round, and built entirely for the cold, where the red fox is lean and long-legged. The Arctic fox is compact and short-limbed, with small, rounded ears and a short muzzle, because every part of the body that sticks out is a place where heat escapes, and in the great cold of the far north, heat must be hoarded. It is wrapped in the warmest fur of any animal on earth, so thick and deep that it can sleep on the open snow, in temperatures far below freezing, colder than most freezers, and stay perfectly warm. Even the soles of its feet are covered in fur, which is where its name in the old scientific tongue comes from, a word meaning harefoot, for its furred feet are like a hare's, padding silently and warmly across the snow, and the Arctic fox changes with the seasons. In winter, it is pure, brilliant white, from nose to tail, so that it vanishes against the snow, a ghost on the ice. But when the brief summer comes and the snow melts back to rock and moss and brown earth, the Arctic fox sheds its white coat and grows a new one, brown or grey, to match the summer ground. Twice a year it changes its color, painting itself to match the world around it. It roams enormous distances across the frozen north, sometimes far out onto the sea ice, following the great polar bears at a careful distance to scavenge the scraps they leave behind. It is a tiny, tough, beautiful creature, making a life in one of the harshest places the world has to offer, curled up, warm and white in the endless winter, waiting out the dark. The journeys these little foxes make across the frozen world can seem almost beyond belief. One young Arctic fox, fitted with a small tracker by scientists, was followed as it set out from an island in the far north and walked across the sea, ice, and the frozen ocean, over mountains and glaciers, all the way to another land, thousands of miles away, crossing in just a few months, a distance it is hard to imagine such small legs ever covering. These tiny animals wander the very top of the world like that, alone across the endless white, following the ice and the food wherever it leads them. And when food is plentiful, the Arctic fox does something that few wild hunters can match. In the brief Arctic summer, when the small, furry lemmings of the tundra breed in great waves of numbers, the Arctic fox feasts and breeds in answer, raising litters larger than those of almost any other wild meat-eater on Earth. A whole tumbling crowd of kits in a single den, born to make the most of the short, bright season of plenty. And in the lean years, when the lemmings are few, the foxes raise only a few young, or none at all. Their lives rise and fall with the great slow tides of the tundra, feast and famine, light and dark, the long, deep pulse of the far north. And then, at the very other end of the earth's warmth, in the burning sands of the great deserts, lives the smallest fox of all, and perhaps the most charming, the fennec fox. It is tiny, small enough to hold in two hands, pale gold and cream in color, with huge dark eyes, and it has ears that you cannot quite believe. Enormous ears, far too big, it seems, for so small a face, standing up like two great sails. Those ears are wonderful for hearing the faint sounds of insects and small creatures moving under the desert sand. But they do something else too. They help the fennec stay cool. The great ears are laced with blood vessels close to the surface, and as the desert air moves across them, they let the heat of the body radiate away into the air, like two soft radiators carrying warmth out of the little fox. The fennec, like its cold cousin, even has fur on the soles of its feet, but for the opposite reason, to protect them from the scorching sand rather than the freezing snow. It sleeps through the worst heat of the day in a cool burrow beneath the sand, and comes out to play and hunt in the gentle cool of the desert night. And it can go a very long time without drinking, drawing the water it needs from its food. And though most foxes live and hunt alone, the little fennec is unusually sociable. Out in the great emptiness of the desert, fennecs gather in small family groups, sharing burrows beneath the sand, the kits playing together in the cool of the night, while the grown foxes call softly back and forth. Their ears, the largest of any fox or wild dog in the world, for the size of the body that carries them, are forever turning in the dark, catching the faintest sounds of life moving beneath the sand. A tiny golden fox with enormous ears, dancing across the moonlit dunes. The world is full of quiet wonders. Between the white fox of the ice and the golden fox of the sand lie all the others. There is the grey fox, the tree climber. There is the swift fox and the kit fox of the open plains, small and fast and shy, barely larger than a house cat, melting away into the grass at the first hint of danger. There is the bat-eared fox of the African grasslands, with its own pair of great listening ears, which it uses to hunt the termites and beetles that are its favourite food, standing still and tilting its head to listen for the insects moving underground. There is a high mountain fox of the cold plateaus of Asia with a strange square-looking face and a calm, flat expression that has made it quietly famous. Each one is a variation on the same gentle theme, the same pointed face, the same bright eyes, the same neat feet and brush of a tail, reshaped a little to fit a forest, a plain, a mountain, a desert, or a field of snow. And the family is wider still than it first appears, for in the grasslands and forests of South America there live many small wild dogs that everyone calls foxes, though they are not quite true foxes at all. only distant cousins wearing the same shape and the same name. There is one that walks the beaches and the marshes and will eat crabs along the shore. There is a tiny, rare, dark little fox that lives in the cool forests of the south and slips like a shadow among the trees. And back in Africa, the bat-eared fox with its huge listening ears carries another small marvel. In its mouth, for it has more teeth than almost any other land animal of its kind, all the better to crunch the countless termites it laps up from the warm ground, from the snows of the far north to the southern beaches, from the high cold plateaus to the deep deserts. The fox and its many cousins have spread into nearly every kind of country there is, each one a small variation on a single graceful idea. The pointed face, the bright eye, the listening ears, the soft, balancing brush of a tail. And because the fox is so clever and so widespread, and so quietly present at the edges of human life, it has woven itself deeply into the stories people tell. For as long as there have been tales, there have been fox tales, and almost everywhere, the fox plays the same part. It is the clever one, the trickster, the small creature that survives not by strength but by wit, outsmarting larger and fiercer animals through cunning and charm. In the old fables, it is the fox who flatters and schemes and slips away. In the folklore of Europe, there are long cycles of stories about a sly fox hero, forever outwitting the wolf and the bear. And in the tales of Japan, the fox becomes something truly magical, a shape-shifting spirit of great intelligence, able to take human form, growing more tails as it grows in wisdom and power, until the oldest and wisest of them have 9. These fox spirits were thought to be messengers of the gods, guardians of the rice fields, beautiful and clever, and not entirely to be trusted. Across the whole world, in cultures that never met one another, people looked at the fox and saw the same thing: intelligence, slyness, a quick and quiet mind behind those golden eyes. One of the oldest of all these tales is barely a few lines long, and you may know it. A hungry fox sees a bunch of grapes hanging high on the vine and leaps for them again and again and cannot reach them, and at last walks away, telling itself the grapes were surely sour anyway. From that one small story of a fox, we still draw a saying for wanting what we cannot have and then pretending we never wanted it. In the great old story cycles of Europe, a fox named for his cunning rings around every other beast at court, forever talking his way out of trouble. And in the temples of Japan, carved stone foxes sit in watchful pairs to this day, guarding the shrines of the harvest god, sometimes with a key or a sheaf of rice held in their mouths. The magical fox as protector and messenger of the divine, trickster, hero, spirit, and guardian. The fox has been all of these. No other small wild animal has lived so richly or so long in the human imagination. And yet, for all that the old tales painted the fox as sly and scheming, there is no malice at all in the real animal. The fox is not cunning in order to deceive, but only in order to live. Its cleverness is the cleverness of the small and the unarmored, of a creature that cannot win by strength or by speed against the larger beasts, and so must win when it wins at all, by wit and patience and care. Every clever thing the fox does, it does to find a meal, to keep its kits safe, to slip past danger, to make it through one more night and one more winter. The slyness the old stories saw is really only the deep resourcefulness of a gentle animal making its quiet way through a hard world. There is something almost tender in it. When you look closely, the fox is not a villain. It is a survivor and a devoted parent, and a small, soft creature doing its clever best simply to stay alive. And the fox really is intelligent in ways that scientists have only begun to explore. And one experiment in particular tells us something gentle and surprising about these animals. Many years ago, in Russia, a scientist began a long and patient study with foxes to try to understand how wild animals first became tame, how the wolf long ago became the dog. He took farm foxes, and in each generation he chose to breed only the ones that were a little calmer, a little less afraid of people, a little friendlier. Only that, only tameness. And generation by generation, a remarkable thing happened. The foxes grew gentle. They began to seek out human company, to wag their tails, to whimper for attention, to behave In short, like dogs, but stranger still as they grew tame, their bodies began to change, all on their own. Their ears grew soft and floppy, their tails began to curl, patches of white appeared in their coats without anyone choosing those things, simply by choosing for gentleness. The foxes drifted toward looking like friendly dogs. It was as though tameness and softness were somehow bound together deep down, and that pulling on one slowly drew out the other. The experiment is still gently debated, but it remains one of the most touching windows we have into the deep nature of these animals and into the ancient bond between people and the creatures of the dog family. And yet, tame or wild, there is a particular gift in simply seeing a fox. Most of us, most of the time, never do. The fox keeps to the edges and the shadows and the small quiet hours, and moves so softly that it passes within yards of sleeping houses, unseen and unheard, night after night after night. But now and then the two worlds touch. You glance out of a window at dusk, and there one stands in the garden, golden-eyed, utterly still, regarding you. Or your headlights catch a low red shape slipping across a country lane and vanishing into the dark of the hedge. Or you wake before dawn and see one trotting, calm and unhurried, straight down the middle of an empty street. And for just a moment, the wild itself looks back at you out of those clever, quiet eyes before turning and melting away into the night. It is a small thing, and people remember it for years. The fox gives us these brief encounters and asks of us only that we let it go on its way, but the fox, for the most part, remains wild and free and its own. It does not need us. It walks the night on its own quiet errands, hunts its own food, raises its own young, wraps itself in its own warm tail, and asks nothing of the human world except to be left a little space at its edges. There is something deeply restful in that. The fox is a small, complete, self-contained life, going on quietly in the dark fields and the moonlit woods and the silent winter snow. Whether or not anyone is watching, perhaps that is part of why the fox holds such a place in our hearts. It lives so close to us, at the very edge of our world. in our fields and our parks and our gardens, and yet it is never quite ours. It is not a pet and not a stranger, but something in between, a wild neighbor, a familiar mystery. It has the soft face and the bright eyes and the curling tail of the dogs we love and keep beside our fires, and yet it will not be kept, will not be tamed, will not trade its freedom for our warmth. The fox keeps one foot in our world and one in the wild, and belongs wholly to neither. And maybe we love it for exactly that, for the way it shows us that the wild has not gone away, that it is still here, still trotting quietly past our doors in the dark, living its own free life a few short feet from our sleeping windows, asking nothing, owing nothing, beautiful and apart. And there is something restful, too, in the fox's deep solitude, something the quiet mind can lean toward at the end of a long day. The fox is alone for most of its life and seems wholly at peace in that aloneness. It does not fret or pine for company or fear the empty dark. It simply goes about its nights self-possessed and complete, needing no one, carrying everything it requires, its skills, its senses, its warm tail, within its own small body. It moves through the great silence of the night fields like something that belongs there utterly, untroubled by the loneliness that so often troubles us. The fox is a small lesson in quiet contentment, in being whole on one's own, in moving softly and self-reliantly through the world, asking little and finding, in the simple round of hunting and resting, and wandering beneath the stars, enough. A fox's life is not usually a long one. In the wild, for all its cleverness, the fox lives a brief and risky life, often only a few short years, for the world is hard on small wild things, and many young foxes do not survive their first difficult winter. A fox that reaches old age in the wild is a rare and seasoned survivor indeed. In the safety of human care, foxes can live far longer, into their teens, but the wild fox tends to burn through its life quickly in a few bright, intense years of hunting and roaming and raising its young. And yet there seems to be no sadness in the fox itself about this. It lives wholly in its present, in the scent on the wind and the sound in the grass, and the warmth of its own tail. each night complete in itself. The fox does not count its years, it simply lives them fully, one quiet night at a time. Think of a single, ordinary night in the life of a fox. As the sun goes down and the world grows quiet, the fox wakes and stretches and slips out from its resting place into the blue dusk. It pauses at the edge of its territory, lifts its nose, and reads the whole evening on the air. All the sense of who has passed and what has changed. Then it sets off on its rounds, trotting lightly along its familiar ways. The hedges and ditches and field edges it knows by heart. It stops to listen, ears turning at every small sound. It noses through the grass for beetles, checks a hidden store of food, springs after a mouse in the dark. It crosses a sleeping road beneath the street lights, a quick, low shape, its eyes flashing green for an instant in the glow, and then it is gone. All night long it moves through the dark world that belongs, in those hours, to the creatures of the night, going quietly about the old business of staying alive. And then, as the sky begins to pale toward dawn, the fox turns back toward home, full or hungry, and finds a sheltered place, and curls down to sleep away the bright and busy day, while the human world wakes and stirs, and never knows that it was there. And the fox sleeps in many places as the seasons turn. In the warm months, it often does not trouble with the den at all, but simply curls up above the ground in a patch of long grass, in the dappled shade of a thicket, in a sun-warmed hollow at the edge of a field, tucking its nose beneath its tail and dozing away the bright hours in the open air, half hidden and utterly relaxed, a fox asleep in the summer grass, the warm light dappling its red fur, the insects droning softly around it, a paw twitching now and then as it chases something. Through a small fox dream is as peaceful a creature as the whole world holds. It does not need walls, or a roof, or a soft, warm bed. It needs only a quiet, safe corner of the living world and the warmth of the sun above, or the warmth of its own tail around it, and it lies down wherever the day happens to find it, and folds itself into a neat round circle, and sleeps, while the long, bright day moves slowly over it, and the noise of the world goes on far away. There are few sights in all of nature lovelier than a fox in winter. The whole world goes white and grey and still, the fields buried, the trees bare, the light thin and silver, and then across all that paleness moves a single spot of warm, bright colour, the red fox, vivid as a small flame against the snow. It trots along a hedgerow, its breath smoking in the cold air, its brush flowing out behind it. The only warm thing in a white world. It stops and lifts a paw and listens. It is so alive, so warm, so quick against the frozen quiet of the winter land. And then it moves on and is gone behind a drift, leaving only the neat single line of its tracks in the snow, and the great white silence settling slowly back over the fields. And the fox has always been there, at the edge of things, for as long as anyone can remember, long before the cities, when people lived in scattered villages among the fields and the woods. The fox trotted past their fires in the dark, just as it trots past our windows now. The same bright eyes watched from the same shadows. The same eerie cry rang out across the same winter nights. The fox has changed very little, while the human world has changed beyond all recognition around it. And there is a strange comfort in that, in this small, constant creature that has kept us quiet company down all the long centuries, asking nothing, simply living its own life at the edge of ours, generation after generation. Fox after fox, night after night. Let the mind follow the fox now, through the seasons, gently, towards sleep. In spring, the kits tumbling in the green grass beside the den in the long light of evening, pouncing on leaves and on one another, and on the very tip of the vixen's patient tail, learning through their play the skills of a whole lifetime. In summer, the fox trotting lightly through the warm dusk, its coat bright in the low golden light, nosing for beetles in the grass and ripe berries in the hedges. The easy, gentle season of plenty, the living world humming all around it. In autumn, the woods full of falling leaves and the smell of damp, cool earth, the young foxes slipping away one by one to find their own quiet corners of the world. The family scattering softly into the lengthening dark. And in winter, the deep, still winter, the fox alone in the snow, its ears turning, listening for the small sounds beneath the white. And then, when the hunt is done, curling into a tight, warm circle at the foot of a tree, wrapping that great brush of a tail around its nose, and closing its golden eyes as the snow drifts softly down and covers it like a blanket, and of everything we have wandered through tonight. Perhaps that is the gentlest thing of all to carry towards sleep, that this small, clever creature needs so little, and carries so much of what it needs within itself. Its warmth is its own, in its deep fur and its wrapping tail. Its shelter is its own, the den it digs, the hollow it finds, its food it hunts, its young it raises, its long nights it walks alone and unafraid. The fox asks the world for almost nothing. Only a little space at the quiet edges, a field to cross, a wood to den in, a winter to wait through, and out of that little, it makes a whole, bright, complete life. Think of it out there now, somewhere in the dark, a small red fox, curled and sleeping in the falling snow, its breath slow and warm in the fur of its own tail, its paws tucked in, its ears at rest, the whole cold world hushed and white around it, and the fox at peace in the middle of it, needing nothing, afraid of nothing, simply resting, as foxes have rested through the winters of the world for longer than there have been people, to wonder at them. Around it, the night is vast and still. The trees stand black and silent against the snow. The stars are sharp and cold overhead, and the moon lays a soft silver light across the white fields. And the only movement anywhere is the slow drift of the falling snow, settling without a sound on the branches, on the field, on the small, curled shape of the sleeping fox. Its sides rise and fall slowly with its breathing. Its tail stirs faintly with each warm breath drawn in through the fur. It is dreaming, perhaps, of the chase, of the high leap, of ascent upon the wind, and the night holds it gently, as the night has always held the small wild creatures of the world, safe in the dark, warm in their own warmth, while the cold stars wheel slowly overhead, and the long winter night drifts on toward morning. The snow falls without a sound. The wood is silent. Somewhere a fox sleeps, warm in its tail, beneath the slow white drift of the night, and the fields lie quiet under the moon, and the small, wild heart beats softly in the dark, and the world turns gently on toward morning, a red shape curled in the snow, a tail across a nose, slow breath in soft fur, the quiet wood, the falling snow, the fox, dreaming, and the long white silence, drifting on into the night.